Iron Eagle joins us here on the program. Were you familiar with the old Salugi play in New York, where, like, some little kid, it'd be the dead of winter, like 3 degrees outside, icy conditions on the streets. You would grab his little hat that was covering his ears, and then throw it around, and you throw it to another guy. As you threw it, and the guy wasn't able to catch up to it in the game of keep away, you would yell Salugi. Should the Salugi play be eliminated from NFL games? This has been a question plaguing us because it's turned around a bunch of point spreads in games. I mean, it ruined Bill Belichick's season. Should that be a ban, the Salugi play, from the National Football League, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I don't remember the whole Salugi thing in Forest Hills. I think right? Mine. It's the same game, except mine was Horowitz. They would just yell out Horowitz.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's the Jewish version of Salugi, because this came from an Italian neighborhood.
Exactly. So I think I played that game, but just a different version.
Yeah.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here on the Defo Show. Great to be anywhere, as I'm coming into somewhat of a shot fighter here today, but massively improved over the previous 2 days, where I was a veritable beached whale in bed for like 2 days straight, unable to really do much of anything. And a very brief moment. Isn't there a weird thing about South Florida flus and colds? First of all, you never get rid of them. This thing has been lingering with me for well over a month. Mostly feeling fine, and then it seems like every 3-4, maybe every other week, it just all of a sudden takes complete control of my body and mind, and that's it. I'm wiped out. But then there's like a brief period of clairvoyance where you actually see the light. Like I was walking a dog on Saturday, and all of a sudden I felt okay for a moment. This was Sunday, I guess, because it's Tuesday. We had the holiday, and we had to invoke the holiday rules yesterday, Lubie, based on the fact that I wouldn't have been able to get out of bed and utter a word. But and here's the thing too, there's an onslaught on over-the-counter cold medications, and they're very scarce in the stores right now. So the one that works for me the best is Mucinex. I don't know if you use Mucinex.
Shirley loves Mucinex. Yep.
Mucinex, pretty good. I mean, I got to say, it kind of busted it up after I finally got a hold of some. But it took me 2 days of searching various stores to find any Mucinex on the shelf. And then when you get there, there's like one packet left, and there's 3 or 4 people descending on it. And it looks like an NFL fumble, right? Where you keep digging at the bottom of the pile. No, the Colts got it. No, it looks like the Ravens. Unbelievable. It did make for a lot of time to sit and watch football. That's for sure, when I could keep my eyes open. And there was some eye-popping stuff. I mean, if you were looking for the NFL to demonstrate once again that it is the king and emperor of all the sports entertainment world, all you had to do, probably, I would imagine the ratings were massive for all of these games. By the way, it would be interesting to see Iron Eagle, or hear Iron Eagle, start a CBS broadcast. Here he is on the threshold of taking over for Nance, who seems, kind of, I mean, he's lost it, right? He was doing that, an exciting, thrilling game between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Thrilling, really exacerbated and just exponentially heightened by the idea that what were the Dolphins doing in this game to begin with? No, really. I mean, everybody, and I know you were highly critical of McDaniel and some of the play calling, and then the non-play calling, where whatever play they were calling, they couldn't get it to the quarterback in time. You are working with a third-string guy, guys.
Yes.
This is not a guy that's accustomed to, being out there in the heat of battle when the lights are on.
Yep.
In those situations. Although, I think Skylar Thompson acquitted himself. I mean, he was horrible in the first quarter.
Okay.
Looked like the Dolphins were going down 62-7, like it was going to be that Jacksonville game, the Sayonara song, swan song for the great Dan Marino. And remember that? I was at that game, Louis. That was disgusting to watch. That's and still it's a very, very pertinent moment in Dolphin history, because that's when people thought that Jay Fiedler was going to be the savior of the franchise. And there was reason to believe that, Louis, because Jay Fiedler was being talked about in the same terms, maybe even being better than Mark Brunell. I've told that story many times. I'm in the elevator on the way up to the press box, and, some old guy named Smitty, who's been in the elevator the entire time the stadium was in existence, turns and says, what do you think about our quarterbacks? I said, it looks to me like, Brunell's pretty good. Still got some game. And he says, Jay Fiedler's the better quarterback. Fiedler came in after the game was out of hand, and he distinguished himself pretty well. The Dolphin brass looked at that and said, look, this Jewish kid from Long Island just beat our ass. We don't care that he's from like Dartmouth or wherever he was from. Let's sign him. And we embraced it, of course, because we're stupid. We should have a disclaimer at the top of every show, Lubie, that if you have suicidal tendencies, do not watch this program. Turn it off. I also found out something, and this is like sort of a self-examination thing, but I realized that in the process of thinking that we could hit a 6-team NFL parlay, you find out a lot about how gutless and just meaningless your life is. I mean, we would have been buried in a sea of losing chalk on Saturday. That's what would have happened to us. We had the first 2 games. San Francisco, I thought they were a cinch over Seattle. And it turned out after a little bit of a dicey first half where they were trailing by a point somehow, miraculously, Seattle's ahead. And you're thinking, okay, glass slippers, sayonara, out the door. It becomes a big, fat black boot that you're going to hit Brock Purdy in the ass with, and it's all over. Done. Sayonara, Cinderella story. And 49ers out of the playoffs. Kyle Shanahan, all of a sudden you question whether he's a good coach or not. All right. Instead, second half, and this has been the story. I mean, the San Francisco defense. Who's the guy, Rico something? Rico Chico, or whatever. He's going to get every interview opportunity. Defensive coordinator for the 49ers.
Oh, D'Amico Ryans?
D'Amico, yeah.
D'Amico Ryans, he was a Texans.
Yeah. Man, this guy's hot right now. And for good reason, right? Because how many shutouts in the second half is San Francisco responsible for so far this season? I mean, and they do it again to Seattle. They turn Geno Smith from another. His Cinderella story had kind of dissipated during the tail end of the regular season, but still a nice story. You like to see this kid who suffered abuse. He was bullied by Rex Ryan and the New York Jets. Bullied this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, schlepped around the league a little bit, was a vagabond, one of these carpetbagging backup quarterbacks that shows up like Chad Henne on the roster 20 years after you thought he was out of the league. And all of a sudden, he's a starter because the brilliant Denver Broncos brass decided they wanted Russell Wilson and were willing to trade everything to get him. Wow. I mean, and that's another thing, too, just to drift off into another further tangent here. But these coaching jobs that are open, that Sean Payton is interviewing for everyone, and D'Amico and all of these other guys that are hot from being coordinators and have had success this year, not highly desirable, are they? Well, would you want to go to a shit team? I mean, it's hard to find a situation where you're going to a winning team, where the guy that replaced Marty Schottenheimer after he went 14-2, comes into a situation where you're going, you know what? I should be able to win 10 games with these guys. You're looking at just a remarkable pool of stiffs in terms of job opportunities that are there. Cardinals also. And all of the teams are interviewing the same guys, yes, including Sean Payton. But why would Sean Payton want one of those jobs? I don't know. I mean, I'm not. We always try to play shrink here in the sports media world. I don't read his mind. Look, I'll tell you why I would want one of those jobs. It's $10 million a year, yep, right? Guaranteed money for the coach. Did I ever, the coach doesn't have to worry about getting injured and losing all of his remaining dough in the contract? No, they're guaranteed this money. So, that would be reason to take over a lousy team. And then, look, if you were going to be in a job like this, do you want to follow in the footsteps of some guy that was legendary? Not necessarily. You want to follow in the footsteps of a stiff, somebody that everybody hated, right? I can't wait to get this guy off the air. And you come in and write the standard cliched review of your work. Jeff DeForest is a breath of fresh air. Try to
sure.
Trying to digest that. All right, where you want to start with this football? Who's the quarterback of the future, by the way? That would be the major question here as we continue the playoffs. Who is and is not the quarterback of the future? That'll be a lot of debate, right? A lot of debate. All right, where do you want to begin? Last night, I mean, it was surprising how poorly, once again, Tampa Bay failed to do anything in this ballgame. Todd Bowles never really impressed me as a head coach. I don't know that he had the tools there to make anything happen. I mean, what's the story there? Brady throws the ball 100 times in a ball game. Now they were hopelessly behind. The most entertaining part of the ball game was the exploits of the Dallas Cowboys kicker, who couldn't make an extra point. And I wish there was in-game betting. Well, I mean, if I had it, I don't know how much could you have gotten down that he was going to miss that third attempt to the left. And maybe you could have specified that this one after doinking too way out there to the right. I mean, this was Florida State plus way out to the right, and then you're thinking, okay, I guarantee you this guy shanks this thing to the left. Were you thinking that when he came out for the third one? Because it's almost impossible. And if you're the Cowboys, you're dominating offensively. You're pretty much dominating defensively, and it's one of those things where you're thinking, all right, this guy's going to overcompensate. You want to send him out there, just let him make a kick, and it's not necessary to really go for two, but it's weird to be up at like 18-0, isn't it?
Yes.
But I would have dropped every dime I had in my possession that he was going to shank it to the left, which he did, and then to come back and miss the next one. My God. So, I mean, how shaky would it have been, the proposition? First of all, if you're laying 2.5 with the Dallas Cowboys, which it turned out I was in my personal bookmaking ventures, which that's the end of this wagering thing to be on. Be the bookie. You don't want to be, you want to be the house. Wouldn't that save everybody all of the anxiety? And, all shows would be out of business if everybody could just be the house, Lubie, right? It's a beautiful position to be in. All right, let's do this. I mean, this is great because he was able to rearrange some things to join us here on the show. We wanted to get into this Dolphins game against the Buffalo Bills also. Lubie, highly critical of Mike McDaniel. There were a few things in there that you could have looked at and said, hey, get a play in there. Don't get penalized for a delay of game. I mean, the lamest of penalties in those spots. But and maybe you could have questioned some play calling. I don't know. I thought it was remarkable that they were in this game at all.
I mean, that's where I come back to is I was frustrated about 4 different things, but I mean,
I don't think you can fault them.
Yeah. Like again, when people like Peter King was really going after him, and I'm like, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you're able to argue about this says everything. Like they shouldn't be in this game. Like
this guy took a depleted team into just an absolutely electrifying, situation in terms of, everything with DeMar Hamlin and the Buffalo Bills and the momentum they had. They're getting shellacked in a ballgame, and he somehow found a way to keep them in there. And even from a motivational standpoint, you would have to say that, this is one of the all-time classic coaching jobs. And plus, his quarterback starts out like shit. I mean, couldn't have been any more off in the first quarter, and he doesn't have any choice but to stick with him. So I thought it was pretty good. Let's bring in Brett Tessler, the agent to the stars here. Brett, how are you, my friend?
Good morning, guys. Doing great.
You must be doing great. I mean, it's good. I keep thinking about it every time I watch NFL games. I'm like, my man Tess, he sought out to be involved in the sport, and you're heavily involved, an integral part of what's going on out there in the field. You seem to have a client interest in virtually every game of meaning. And the league, I don't know. It couldn't have been any more wildly entertaining this year, I don't think. And adding the extra teams to the playoffs, I think, only enhanced the fact and solidified the notion that there is no greater sports entertainment right now than the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. That's been the case for years. I mean, I remember when I used to argue with Joe Angel, who was my parents' next door neighbor and a great friend, and obviously legendary baseball announcer. We were arguing like 25 years ago about which is America's sport, and he was still trying to hang on to the whole baseball notion.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was already becoming clear, and at this point, it's just ridiculously clear how dominant of a sport NFL football is in our country, and frankly, at this point, it's probably bigger than the other 3 major sports combined.
Amazing. All right, let's get into this game a little bit. I gave the Dolphins no chance. I'm thinking, a 35-10 shellacking would have been admirable and respectable performance. Skylar Thompson, I know we've been impressed by certain things that he does. He's not a total bust by any stretch of the imagination, but, not necessarily the guy that you want to go with. Most of the theories, Brett, and, there's no way. I mean, these are so hypothetical that I'm not sure that it's worth trying to, hypothesize about. But people will say that if the Dolphins have Tua in that game, they win that game. I'm not sure. I mean, you never know how a thing would have gone. I mean, Tua could have got knocked out on the first play, could have thrown a pick, whatever. But the fact that the Dolphins were in that game says what to you? I mean, that kind of amazed me that they actually had a lead in the second half of the ball game, and I kept fighting right to the bitter end.
Yeah,
to their credit, they fought hard. They went with what they got, and naturally, a team is going to be better with a guy like Raheem Mostert than without. A team is going to be better with some of the other linemen, even some of their backup linemen who are out, which had to open the door to third string linemen. Typically, a team's going to be better, with those guys as opposed to without. But the reality of the situation is this: in this league, any team can win any game, and in any situation. And in order for the Dolphins to be able to be competitive in a game like this, they were going to need some things to go their way. And that was the case. You saw some deflection interceptions the Dolphins were able to get on Josh Allen. And so because of that, it allowed the game to be closer than it probably would have been if it was just a straight up game. Meaning, there's some games where nothing fluky happens. It's just one team playing their best against the other team playing their best. And one team is just clearly the better team. In this case, I think everybody realizes Buffalo is just a superior team, period. Starting with quarterback, offensive line, defense. I mean, don't even get me started. So, some things went the Dolphins' way, which allowed the game to be a little closer than you might have expected. But on the other hand, again, to their credit, they did what they could. I thought they put up a real respectable performance.
All right. A year ago with Brian Flores, who got fired subsequent to that season, 9-8. This year, 9-9 with a playoff appearance for the first time since 2016. Brett Tessler, where do we stand with this team? How should we feel about it? And B, what needs to be done? Major areas to improve upon in the off season. And I guess we can make it a C if we can remember all of these parts. I'm sorry. Do we have the quarterback situation under control?
I mean, the quarterback situation, I don't know. Just because naturally there was a great part of the season where Tua just completely emerged and far exceeded any expectations that I might have had for him just based off what you saw the last 2-3 years with him. But, and then, concussions aside, there was a handful of other games there where, things just were not clicking and, accuracy wasn't quite where it had been at different times earlier in the season. Just things weren't clicking. And so I don't know whether that's just a case of water finding its level. I don't know if that's a case of, some of the concussions taking their toll on him. There's no way to know the answer. But the reality is the team has a abundance of absolute weapons. But oftentimes, the weapons can only do so much if you don't have an offensive line that can really provide time and protection for everything to click. And that was by far the team's biggest shortcoming this season. So that's something that's going to have to be addressed this offseason in a big way.
Yeah, and it's a 20-year-old problem that's plaguing them. Or maybe even, you got to go back to like Richmond Webb and Keith Sims and Tim Ruddy in there on the offensive line before what we actually felt like, A, you could name these guys year after year, and B, you thought that they were a key ingredient to any success that the team was having. How solvable is that? You represent, you're smart enough to represent the most important position there, which everybody thinks would be quarterback, wide receiver, running back, defensive backs. You got the big guys, the offensive linemen. So, how do you find that guy? Is there a guy floating out there, Brett Tessler, that could help this team? How acquirable and how easy of an asset is this to come by in the NFL?
It depends on the position. If you're talking about a franchise left tackle, those guys typically have to be gotten high up in the draft, just like a franchise quarterback. You don't find those guys in their prime hitting the open market because either they're getting franchise tagged or their team has already wrapped them up way before, they even get close to hitting free agency. So as far as guards and stuff like that, you can find talent at those positions all through, the mid to late rounds. Right tackle you can find through the mid to late rounds. Same thing with center. So, They have Teron Armstead, and he's clearly been the best player on that line. Sure, he's had some injury issues, but that's just the way it goes. And, so I think, the other positions they can take a good hard look at, either in, adding value and depth in free agency, as well as really directing some of their draft capital to really trying to bolster that unit overall, because, again, watching it this season, I think it's clear that's what they need.
All right, having a slight vested interest in all of these games over the weekend, I naturally paid close attention to a few things. But with what's left, I mean, Buffalo and Cincinnati, both teams struggled in spots where you didn't think that was going to be the case. Cincy had just absolutely handled Baltimore in the first half of the previous game. They just met the week before. Same circumstances occur. You got Huntley at quarterback, which. Those scramble goal line plays that the Ravens like to run with Lamar Jackson just don't work with Huntley for some reason. So they were really compromised, as evidenced by the play that ultimately you had all bettors really reaching for a vomit bag, including me, where he allows a 98-yard return to go against you when you're about to go in for a clinching score. But what are we left with? I mean, were those just off weeks for Cincinnati and Buffalo? I mean, are these two premier teams in the AFC, or have they tailed off a little bit in your estimation based on what we saw last week, or is it just an aberration, throw the game out the window?
Nah, I just think it's, again, an example very similar to the Dolphins game that we've been talking about, as far as the Cincinnati game. It's the playoffs. I mean, everybody wants to win. You're going to get everybody's best punch. And look, Baltimore is always going to be a tough out. Any team coached by John Harbaugh, one of the best coaches in the league, always has his teams prepared, always has them competing hard, always has great defenses, at least, defenses that are well schemed and coming out to compete. So, in the case of Huntley, naturally he's a step down from Lamar Jackson, but he is the same style of quarterback. So it's not like you go from pulling Lamar Jackson to having Mike Glennon come in there. You know what I mean? So it's the same kind of guy. And then Huntley's backup is similar to him. So obviously you need to have similar type quarterbacks to come in the event that your starter goes down, so the offense can at least continue to try to process the way it was intended. And so with that being said, I thought Baltimore put up a really good fight. I don't think it's a case that Cincinnati played so bad. But in both of those instances, in the end, the better teams won. And I figure that as time goes on throughout the postseason, the level of play, the competition will just get better and better.
Brett, what are you doing with a guy like Brandon Staley? I mean, it felt like he was coaching for his job. They are rolling in the first half. And then in the second half, they can't do anything, right? And I get it. Everyone wants to give the Jags credit, but the Chargers were on the end of giving up a 27-point lead, the third biggest in NFL playoff history. And he still has his job today. I'm baffled at how some of these people get fired and then how some keep their jobs.
Well, for one, Lubie, not saying that he should or shouldn't keep his job.
Yeah.
Just saying the reality is, these coaches have contracts, guaranteed contracts, and not every team is willing to just eat those contracts as much as others. You take a guy like Stephen Ross. He's shown that he's not afraid to make whatever change he feels is necessary to help increase his team's chances of winning. And you saw this in the case of other teams who ended up firing their coaches 1 year into a deal or 2 years into a deal. You saw the heinous contract that the Cardinals gave Kingsbury, and then turn around and fire him 1 year into it. So, these teams should really think closely about A, who they're hiring in the first place, B, who they're extending. It's one thing to hire a guy and have things not work out and have to move on from them, because if you're not going with a proven type coach now, whatever team ends up with Sean Payton, you know exactly what you're getting. You go that direction, you know what you're getting. But it's one thing, when a team takes a shot at the next would-be hotshot coordinator. Sometimes these things work out. Sometimes you get, the next Sean McVay, or sometimes you get the next Cam Cameron. And so, once you realize that you don't have the right guy, then yes, the best thing you could do for your team is clearly to, cut ties and move on. So it's one thing, again, to give a guy a shot and maybe it doesn't work, but to go ahead then and give that guy an extension before you need to, only to have to turn around, and fire him a year later. To me, that's just inexplicable. Major waste of money. But on the other hand, at least kudos to them for still doing what they feel like they need to do. And so as it relates to Brandon Staley or any other coach for that matter, the team will evaluate it and they'll do what they think they need to do. And if they feel like, he still gives them a good chance to win. Obviously, they've got one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. And I don't care what anybody says. Fans are so funny, just the way they react to things. One day Tua stinks. The next day Tua is the greatest in the league. Now he stinks again. So, just as far as fans are concerned, Justin Herbert is the real deal. He's one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league. His future is so bright. He's so talented. That team has plenty of other holes. He is not the reason they lost. And so, when you've got a quarterback like that, you've got to factor in his relationship with that head coach, in terms of his ability to succeed under that coach, as well as his willingness to want to stay there long term, working with somebody that he clicks with and somebody he likes, as opposed to maybe the next guy where it ends up being a disaster. And, we've seen that happen too. So, I'm not here to say who should or shouldn't keep their job. I'm just here to say that, teams have different willingness. You take an owner like Jerry Jones, one of the deepest pocket owners. You look traditionally throughout the years, he does not fire coaches that have time left on their contract. So, different teams do it different ways. And, the Chargers will do it whichever way they think is best for their organization.
Stuck with a stiff. That would be the case if I was on Judge Judy. Stuck with a stiff. Brett Tessler, the agent to the stars, with us here. I appreciate you distinguishing the program with what I would think in today's overall broadcasting spectrum, including all streaming shows, podcasts, regular on-air TV, whatever, newspapers. We had the only Coco Cameron reference probably on the show, and it's always good to be reminded of that particular year of Dolphin football. All right, one last thing, Brett Tessler, if you don't mind. The coaching carousel thing is always, going to be much talked about and a lot of speculation. It does seem like, I guess there are like 4 jobs open right now, and that the same guys are interviewing for all of them. Of those jobs, if you're representing one of these coaches, I mean, where would you go? Because it seems like none of the opportunities are all that inviting, except, as you said, you have a guaranteed contract if you're a head coach.
Well, Arizona is interesting, from the standpoint that there's some talent on that team. I mean, Kyler Murray has talent, but obviously just over the last couple of years, for whatever reason, things have not come together there. And then you look at an LA Chargers, which again, obviously Brandon Staley's still there. But if something were to change there, I'd say that would be at the top of my list, because the one thing obviously that any coach is looking for is a team that has a quarterback in place, because you look at certain teams in this league and you look at how many years, and how many guys they've drafted. You look at what the Browns went through for all those years, Tim Couch, Baker Mayfield. I mean, Jesus, the list just goes on and on and on.
Maybe stuck with Deshaun Watson too. Yeah.
Well, I think he'll be okay. The guy's a proven commodity. I think this year was more an opportunity kind of for him to get the rust knocked off and sort of start getting himself back together for the years to come. And so we'll see how that works. But in some of these other instances, if you're a coach out there, you obviously want to go where the quarterback situation is resolved. And so I'd say, for a guy like Sean Payton, maybe he feels like Denver, would be a place, even though, of course, Russell Wilson had a tough year. At least you're talking about a veteran borderline Hall of Fame type career where, I don't think you want to go somewhere where there's just, a bunch of young guys or, a situation where a team has a few guys without any real clarity as to who's the guy.
Well, and the word that's come out, I know we're going to wrap up things here with Brett, but the word that's come out is he sort of favors the Texans job. And you look at that and you laugh and you're like, the Texans. But they actually were in the game. They were in games this year with a horrendous roster, and they have the number 2 pick. So either Bryce Young falls to you, or you could go and get a CJ Stroud. A lot of time coaches know they're going to be tied to the quarterback, so they'd rather pick him themselves. Like, why would you think they'd be tied to the Texans? Because they seem to be a disaster, but again, you do have the number 2 pick.
I don't know. I mean, unless the quarterback that, unless you have the top pick and that quarterback is like a Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck or, the kind of guy who's seen as sort of a can't miss guy. Again, I'd still rather take a scratch lottery ticket, winning ticket over an unscratched one. And so when it comes to draft picks, you've seen how hit or miss it is with that position. You see what a crapshoot it is. You see how, one guy taken in the top 10 or whatever ends up becoming, a decent player. And then a guy maybe taken after him becomes an all-world player. And no, I'm not talking about Tua and Herbert.
No, Patrick
You
Mahomes.
saw it the Mahomes year. Yeah, exactly. And so, same thing with Lamar Jackson too. So you just never know with these guys. And so unless, a coach's main motivation is money or things like that, if it's a guy who's getting later in his career and his main objective is just trying to win another Super Bowl, then you go somewhere where you got that guy who has shown that he can cut it, and then you start building the other pieces around him and go from there.
Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold. Jet fans, know exactly of what you speak. That there's no guarantee, my friend. You can have that high draft pick.
That's exactly what you can get these, and that's and then on the other hand, you could take a guy like Josh Allen, which I'm not going to lie, I just didn't think it was a great pick. I mean, the guy was so erratic in college and just raw, and he was a guy that had all the measurables you're looking for, but there was nothing about his college career that would indicate that this guy can, take a team on his shoulders and take him to the next level, or that, his accuracy issues could be resolved, because as we've discussed, that's usually a very, very difficult thing for guys to improve if they don't really have it, especially when they get to the NFL level. So, that makes what Josh Allen has done, just even more remarkable, kind of like 1 in a million. But, for every one of him, there's the Zach Wilsons, there's the Sam Darnolds, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Excellent stuff as always, Brett. Congratulations to all your clients on the good seasons that they had. Unfortunately, your Minnesota guy, Joseph, the kicker, was unable to move on there. Giants played a really good ball game against Minnesota. I don't know that Minnesota disgraced themselves, but we were speculating at what point in the game would Vikings fans be screaming, "Fucking Vikings!" Because they always manage to fuck things up in those spots, and they did it again. So anyway, you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week after the next round of the playoffs. Thanks so much for being with us.
All right, guys. Sounds great. Have a great one.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Brett Tessler, Agent to the Stars. That came true, right? Fucking Vikings, right? You were thinking they got off to a good start there, and then the Giants came back, scored a couple of times, and wow, Daniel Jones. I have to show you this, Lubie. I mean, if Biden didn't have these hidden documents, it would have been the front page of the paper altogether. But this is the headline today in the New York Post. Elite. And there's a picture of your favorite guy.
It feels like, and Mark Sanchez didn't put numbers like this, but it feels like the Giants are doing what the Jets did with Sanchez. So we'll see.
I don't know about that. I don't make that comparison.
He's not
Sanchez was not a good passer. I mean, this guy was throwing the ball.
And Sanchez turned it over. So I'm not saying he's Sanchez. I'm not saying that. They're trying to tell themselves something based on the result of a game. And the game was Daniel Jones didn't carry the team.
He was a big factor. I mean, obviously, being a quarterback, but I thought he played well. I really did. And, so here's the subhead on that. Eli raves about Jones, says his successor set to lead Giants for years to come. Louis.
Yeah, we'll see. And that's it.
Is this an overreaction of massive proportions?
We'll see. I think so. I think he's better than I thought he was. I think he can be their quarterback. This idea where they're like, he's the guy. Okay. We'll see.
All right, we'll be back with more here in a moment as I try to work my way through some very scratchy throat reactions here. This is the most talking I've done. All I was doing was moaning for like 2 days, man. You ever do that where you're just like a rabbi? You're thinking, what is it now? Chills? Is it overwhelming? I mean, and you can't wait to break a sweat, right? When this happens, you're like screaming hallelujah. It's like you just had your first orgasm with an actual chick. Unbelievable. Right? I mean, remember that? Where you thought, wow, all of those years of masturbation were completely wasted. Because this is what I really should have been doing all along. This is fantastic. Unbelievable. I still can visualize that moment for me. And it was a very, enlightening realization. All right, we're coming back. Let me tell you about Hialeah Park. I think I can scratch my way through this one. Hialeah Park, because the handicap tournament is around the corner. It's actually a week from this coming Sunday or 2 weeks from last Sunday. However you want to schedule your slot, it's January 29th. Seat available to the NHC. That's a National Handicapping Championship. That is a big deal if you're not even familiar as a horse player with the NHC. It is a fantastic thing, and the prize money is off the chart. I mean, like $800,000 to the winner. Something like that last year. They pay way down too. So if you get in there, I mean, it's a dynamite thing, and you can win a seat to the NHC at Hialeah Park, January 29th. The $500 buy-in, $300 of that buy-in is your bankroll for your betting, and that's a live bankroll. So let's say you end up up two dimes at the end of the day. Boom, that's your money too. And then on top of that, the rest of the cash goes to the prize fund and, minor amount of expenses that are involved in running this sort of thing, including a free lunch and, a lunch that's included and breakfast as well. So you can feed your face, handicap all day. It involves 2 tracks, Gulfstream and Aqueduct, and win your way into the NHC in Las Vegas with transportation for 2, accommodations for 2, and a seat in the NHC, which gives you a shot at real riches. And it's not impossible, Lubie, for like even a first-time player to win the thing. You do have to try and understand a little bit of tournament strategy, I believe. But study up on that before you get to the NHC, and maybe even before you get to Hialeah, and just realize that if you come away the winner there, you not only win the prize fund money, which I think was like 3 or 4 dimes. Wow! Last time they did this, and then you've won money because your bankroll obviously has increased, and on top of that, you got like what would have been a $10,000 ticket to Las Vegas. Jeez. So wow. Well worth a shot. I mean, considering the minimal amount of ante to get into the tournament. That's the NHC seat available tournament there, the Handicapping Championship, a satellite event for that. It's taking place at Hialeah Park, January 29th. Entry forms available at hialeahpark.com. Get your entries in, and you're going to love it. And it's a great day anyway. I mean, win, lose, or draw. It's just a fantastic day. So, have yourself a ball at the Handicapping Championship at Hialeah Park. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment here on the Defo Show. John Congemi has the Pigskin Playbook. A lot of pigskin stuff to talk about here. I do want to get this in for Jim Sarney. He's been bugging me about this, and I feel actually a small level of guilt in not mentioning this story, Lubie.
FAU?
Yeah, FAU, man. They won like 16 in a row. Who's on the FAU basketball team? Who's the coach? Do we know anything about
Dusty May? I don't know. We've had the FIU coach on a bunch of times. We've never had FAU.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know anything about this.
I can reach
16 in a row this team has won. They're ranked in the top 25. Amazing. What happened now? Did Syracuse play Miami last night? Was that last night? I saw a picture of somebody at a Syracuse-Miami game. And, you never know on Facebook. This could be from like a distant memory. But was there a game last night between the Cuse and the University of Miami? A game that I'm somewhat ambivalent. Miami won?
Won by 10, yeah. Oh, 4. I'm sorry. Miami won by 4. Miami won. It was a close game, but they won by 4.
I watched some of that game they had against, was that NC State, where they went down in overtime?
Yeah.
That was some game. I mean, a tough one there for Jim Larinaga, but still with a very lofty and impressive record there at 15-3, something like that. So doing real well. And, congratulations. Would I be inclined to schlep down here to the arena to see? This is bad on my part, huh? I mean, there would have been a time I would have made sure I went to the Syracuse University of Miami basketball game. especially since they have like their own arena now, and they're not playing in places where you don't really. Well, they did play for a while there at the Heats Arena,
Yes.
and yeah, I mean that was like it was sad really because there were never
No one's
more than
there.
2,000 people in the ballpark. And you can hear guys talking to each other as you were doing the radio broadcast, and it's just like, wow. I mean, look at this program. How do you keep running this? I mean, well, on what justification is basketball on the budget, men's basketball at the University of Miami, right? Where they're doing great research, brilliance, right? I mean, sharks will never be extinct as long as the University of Miami has that, aqua, learning lab or whatever around. So anyway, yeah, okay, Miami, good congratulations there to Jim Larrañaga and the crew. FAU 16 in a row. We might have to look into that a little bit later.
I'll look into getting Dusty May on. I'm sorry, Sonny.
Yeah, he's onto something there. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
7:43.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine foods served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
I mean, if you look at our organization today, and you've seen what we've done, from every aspect except on the playing field, we're probably the first-class organization in the National Football League.
It's now time for the Defo Show.
High-end mediocre is what you could say. No, I mean, they were at the upper echelon of mediocre this year, the Miami Dolphins. Unfortunately, in the end, if you really look at the result, if you go Parcells and say you are what your record says you are, 9-9 is not exactly elite.
No.
Were they good enough to be a playoff team? Yes. Were they better than some of the playoff teams that were involved? Maybe so. Were they compromised badly in the game that they had and put up a very brave struggle? Certainly did that. But, excuse me. The bottom line is mediocrity plus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I needed your help there, really.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know what to do with this season, because a lot of people are like, well, they were 8-3. When you look at 8-3, you can't call it a success. I'm like, yeah, but look at what they were missing. And I get it. Everyone had injuries, but they were on their third and fourth string defensive backs. They were on they were missing 2 to 3 linemen in every game. Armstead was hurt. You were on your third string quarterback, not even your backup in Huntley, your third string quarterback. The fact that they were representative in that game, to me, said a lot. I don't like how it finished. I don't like the McDaniel didn't dumb it down a little bit for Thompson, and he didn't. The 3rd and 19 run deep in your end zone, 3rd and 19 pass deep in your territory was just dumb. Everyone knew it. He knew it. He just couldn't help himself. And then at the end of the game, Thompson should have had 5 plays. Why were they huddling? Like, why are you huddling when you have no timeouts? Like, do the K gun. You're playing the Bills. No huddle, get to the line, call plays.
There was a lot of slop there, no doubt about it.
That's fine. Like, people are excoriating him for it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go that far. He's a rookie coach, and he was playing with 3 backup linemen and a third-string quarterback. How many times have those people played together? Like, and you're expecting them to be
just to even show up for the game. He had to have a certain amount of courage, I think. I wouldn't disagree with the people that had critical comments about some of his in-game strategies, McDaniel. I think that was there. I would say this, that it's absolutely perceivable, because I don't even think it's a split second. I think Skylar Thompson is a full beat behind Tua.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
In decision-making and everything that he does, including releasing the football, and with a patchwork makeshift offensive line. You choose which description you would like to give them. You can't afford that. I mean, you just can't afford to be a second slow from what your best would be, and it came back to haunt him. So, but mediocrity, upper echelon mediocrity there at 9-9, and still a lot of questions to be asked about what's going to happen there, and that's going to be the big question around the league all during the offseason. Would you be better off with Derek Carr at quarterback for the Miami Dolphins next year than a suspect Tua Tagovailoa, talent notwithstanding, not saying that he's a bomb or anything? I would think he could possibly progress off what he did this year. But would you be better off moving on if you were the Miami Dolphins?
I don't think at this point where he is in his contract, you're moving on per se. The Carr thing's interesting because to me, the Jets should be running to get their Carr.
Yeah, that would be a natural.
Really need a quarterback desperately. He's a veteran quarterback, and they seem to have everything else. So if they could go and get Derek Carr, they'd be scary. If you're the Dolphins, I think his contract's pretty big. I think you'd have to trade for him. So I don't think you get to start over with him. And they don't have the money right now or room. Like, that's the problem.
They're not going to do that, though. I mean, that's not even going to be a question they address. I would believe that to be true. That they have to be convinced that they're in good shape to it, unless they know something about this medical condition that we don't. So and when you see Tua, he looks fine, doesn't he? He's happy,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is he completely out of his head? Is that what happened to the guy? I would not wish for that. That's for sure. All right, so we line up this way for this coming week, and John Congemi is going to join us here in the 8 o'clock hour of the program and dissect all of these things. So once again, very exciting weekend. I mean, I do think the NFL hit it right out of the park there. It expanded the playoffs. Couldn't have asked for more. I mean, you got a full slate. You had 2 games on Saturday, 3 more Sunday, another one on a Monday night, which, many of which were wildly entertaining. San Francisco still acquitted itself probably as the team to beat in the NFC, unless what we see from Philadelphia changes our minds against the Giants.
Yeah. The Eagles, we didn't see them, so they're out of sight, out of mind. Most people have them a notch above the Niners. The Purdy wasn't even good in the first half, and he made me feel confident in why I have them as the best team. Like, that second half, it wasn't even fair. Like, they just
Seattle looked like amateurs.
They just steamrolled.
Yeah.
And they didn't play great. So I'm like, man, the Niners really put it together. That's my thing with the Eagles. Like, I don't know why. I know they're very similar to the Niners. And
I tend to dismiss the Eagles for no reason. I haven't seen that much Eagles football this year. I mean, we know about the story with Jalen Hurts. It's been a good story. He has been hurt, unfortunately, and so we don't know what we're going to get from this guy when he comes back out there. The Giants, I think, wrote a real good story this year. I think their New York tabloids and press, greatly overreacting to the Giants and Brian Daboll. But they were impressive against Minnesota. I mean, they went on the road. They beat a Minnesota team that I think was, 13-4 during the season, and that they were pretty much in command of that game the entire time.
Yes, and guys like Andy, look, a lot of people were on the G-Men, and I'll give them credit. That scared me. was like, there's too many.
Everybody that we talked to, all of our handicappers, Brandon Lang, Mark Lawrence, they all love the Giants in this game.
It scared me.
I had to convince myself, that I was going to stick with Minnesota, even after the dissertation on Friday about when are you going to start screaming, "Fuck you, Vikings." Fucking Vikings, right? Every time you bet the Vikings, it's fucking Vikings. What are you doing? It's weird, huh?
Yeah.
It wasn't like Kirk Cousins was horrible in the game. I don't think you could, make that case. A lot of people would quickly point a finger there. I mean, the Giants just beat them flat out. They were a better team that day.
They did.
They handled them. They kept them at bay the entire time and ended up winning the ball game by 7 points, which wasn't too shabby, right? And in impressive fashion. Made you think that, are they out of it against Philadelphia? They played Philadelphia tough, did they not?
Yeah, no, that's the thing is I'm just writing them off. And it's just because I don't know who's on their team. Like Dable's done a hell of a job. The Giants are what we wanted the Dolphins to be. Look, and for the Dolphins' credit, they have a lot of injuries. The Giants don't. To the Giants' credit, they've somehow stayed healthy throughout most of the season, and right now feel really healthy. And Saquon Barkley is back to being Saquon Barkley. I think the Eagles win that game, but to just poo-poo the Giants is something I'm trying to learn to not do.
The Cowboys looked impressive last night. I mean, were they impressive enough to make you think they can beat the 49ers on the road?
No.
No? When does it end for Brock Purdy? I mean, eventually, does this guy have to come back to the pack? Can you win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy? That would be the big question of the postseason. And why not? I mean, it's possible, right?
I think they can. I think people are putting too much on. Look,
Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Well, and they're not asking him to do it all. The first half, yeah, he wasn't great. Exactly. The first half, he wasn't great, and they were in the game. Like, they're not asking him to do a lot. Like, their run game is great. Their defense is great. And they have so many weapons on offense. Like, you forget about the Ayuk.
My God, yeah.
Ayuk guy is nuts. Like, they just have so much talent. It's like a basketball. Like, eventually, and you made fun of me for the Heat thing, but I'm like, they have to come through when they were like 9-8, and you're like, oh, the magic wand. I'm like, I don't know about magic wands. It's just at some point, the talent shines through. Like Purdy, and it's not like he's Jimmy G couldn't run, couldn't make plays, and then would always make a stupid ass decision. Like Purdy doesn't do that. He's like, look, I know what I'm surrounded by, so I'm just gonna let them go. And he does it. And that's all you need when you have a team like that. That's my problem with Jalen Hurts. They actually do count on him to make plays with his legs a lot. And as we've seen in the playoffs, that comes to bite you in the ass. Like in the NFL, whether it's RG3 or Lamar Jackson, eventually the good defenses catch up to you. And now, okay, make a big play with your arm. I for some reason, I trust Purdy more than Hurts, and maybe I'm wrong in that. But I don't think Purdy counts on anything. Like, I think if you take something away from him, he's like, all right, these guys will carry me. And I think Hurts counts on his legs a lot. And I think the Eagles count on his legs a lot. And you've seen that this year. And I'm curious what they are when he can't run.
We'll see what happens. I mean, it's interesting all the way across the board. I mean, Jags are 9-point dogs to the Chiefs. You figure their run ends there, but the Chiefs rarely cover a point spread.
Yep.
Cincinnati Buffalo looms as partially a toss-up to me, but I would lean towards Buffalo for no great reason. Cincinnati looked like they were handing Buffalo, a beating in that abbreviated game with the DeMar Hamlin incident, and then they really laid an egg out there against the Baltimore Ravens. I thought they played poorly, and their offensive line is diminished now by more injuries, and it was lousy to begin with. So Joe Burrow takes an inordinate number of sacks. It could be in trouble there against the Buffalo Bills. No, there's my theory on that game. Capsulization. The G-men in Philly, I think that's a competitive game, and naturally people are going to lean towards Philadelphia. That's why they're 7.5-point favorites at home against the Giants. But if the Giants play like they did against Minnesota, I think they're more than in there, with a shot, at least to cover a point spread. And the Cowboys were absolutely impressive last night. I don't know, was Tampa Bay that bad? I mean, they're an 8-9 team in the postseason. Here's a team that ended up 8-10 in Brady's. That's his first losing season ever, too, isn't it? Tom Brady, first time he ever had a losing season in the league. I believe that to be true. 20-something years.
Second year after they won the Super Bowl and that they didn't make the playoffs. I don't know if
weren't they kind of jobbed down in there? With like one of those 10-6 records.
That's what I'm trying. I know after that they never had a bad year, but
yeah. Like I want to say yes to that Brady's never had a losing season until this year.
This whole
and what do you
thing's so
do?
weird. He hasn't talked at all about retiring, and it's like, what do you like? So you're going to go to another place? Like, is he really going to another?
Yeah, it sounds like he's coming back. I mean, for all indications, but you never know. I mean, would it not be tempting to take the 350 and just go to the booth?
You think
and spew out cliches with Jim Gray? Yeah,
he lost a marriage, which maybe he didn't care about, and that's on him. But then this is the one thing he supposedly didn't want to end like this. Like,
yeah,
it's going to get better. Okay,
it's not like he's sitting on a Rams helmet or broken down Johnny U getting thrown into a ball game when they ran out of quarterbacks. I wouldn't say it was. I mean, when I watched him, he was mostly doing lousy.
No, his stats. But you look at stats.
But the stats, I mean, certainly indicated
I didn't see that.
something better. But I don't see where, he didn't have a shot to, I mean, he's got some of the best receivers in the league in terms of tandems. You wouldn't take Godwin and Evans as a pair of receivers on any team in the league and say, hey, we're satisfied with that? Of course you would.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, he does have that game where he throws the ball like 9 yards down the field, right in the middle of the field, and he still throws those darts, but it just doesn't seem to be there like it was in the past. The magic is gone with Tom Brady.
He's 40. Is he 46? 45? Like, I mean, come on.
45 years old. He'll be 46. He comes back next year. Wow, I mean, that's insane. But he looks like he's 12. I mean,
yeah, it's fine.
Wow.
Right? I mean.
I mean, whatever he's doing, we should all take a page out of his, dietary and nutritional habits.
Read the book.
Right? I might go out and buy a copy, man. Look, I look like I have jaundice on the show here today. Choking to death on every other word and trying to, zamboozle my way through the thing. I'm glad you guys are sticking with us here. The English patient would have been better off hosting here today. Excuse me. All right, John Congemi coming up, the Pigskin Playbook. And hopefully we'll let John do almost all of the talking here on the show as we continue in a moment. Now that.
The time.
7:58.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Mr. Congemi, were you a member of the Corleone family? Did you serve under Capo regime under Vito Corleone, also known as the Godfather?
I never knew no Godfather.
Mr. Congemi, you are contradicting a sworn statement you previously made to me and signed. I ask you again, sir, here and now under oath, were you at any time a member of a crime organization headed by Michael Corleone?
I don't know nothing about that. Oh, I was in the olive oil business with his father, but that was a long time ago, that's all.
We have a sworn affidavit. We have it. Your sworn affidavit that you murdered on the orders of Michael Corleone. Do you deny this confession?
Look, the FBI guys, they promised me a deal. So I made up a lot of stuff about Michael Corleone, because that's what they wanted. But it was all lies. Everything. And I kept saying, Michael Corleone did this, and Michael Corleone did that. So I said, yeah, sure.
It's now time for the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show, the Defo Show here on a Tuesday. We missed you yesterday, and you can see why. I mean, this is the good side of this thing, and I'm dying with every other word here. I didn't realize how much this was going to exacerbate the situation, trying to talk my way through
That's why
things.
we didn't do yesterday. Andy was like, "You got to grind it out." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "It has nothing to do with that." Defo's like dying.
I couldn't have. I was seeing bugs yesterday.
I was like, "I'd rather not."
These Florida flu bugs. I mean, and how long are they in your system? Like, is this going to go on forever?
I don't know. Look, and Mayo, and I asked you. Mayo turned to me and he's like, "Has he had a COVID test?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know." But I will say, my buddy had something similar to this a month ago, where he was sick for a couple weeks.
Yeah,
got better, and then was sick again. And I was like, I've never heard of getting a relapse of sick, but I've heard a bunch of people having something like that. Where and that COVID, that's not COVID. COVID, that's just a flu of some kind. Like I don't know what's going on around here, but
no, it's weird.
Yeah, it's happening. You're not the only one. I've heard a bunch of people have that exact thing.
Well, hopefully it's dissipating, but this isn't helping it any. But nonetheless, we're happy to be here. John Congemi going to join us in just a few minutes with the Pigskin Playbook here on the Defo Show, and a lot of Pigskins topics to talk about here. There'll be all kinds of rampant speculation. I mean, you always have these two things swirling out there in the off season: coaching carousel, quarterback carousel.
Yes.
And you know, in the NFL, you know, most people would say you need at least one, if not both, to have any kind of a shot. Now that may, we'll see how that proves out, right? I guess what you have, what you consider to be mostly good coaches left in the postseason. Well, we haven't seen
now. Yeah, I don't think any of these guys are questioned. I mean, yeah, I think everyone that's left is either already great or a guy that is coming into his own in like a day bowl.
All right, we'll see. I mean, Daboll, very impressive his first year. Let's join. There he is. All right. And we're hoping he carries the entire hour here because I'm hurting, man. I definitely am. John Congemi, how are you? You've worked through these kind of things where, like, you say a couple of words and then all of a sudden you feel like you're going to choke to death, and you just don't want to do it, because it could be contagious through the screen. But it's never easy. I mean, I've done it many, many times, but it's been a while. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. I hope you're feeling better soon, Defo. Yeah, it's one of those things where you say a couple words and you look at your partner going, "Okay, it's your turn. Let's go."
You got it. You got it.
You got it. Yeah. Those are hard days, and sometimes you have to try to find a way to get through it. And it's a lot like sports. When you're either hurt or you're sick or you're beat up a little bit, you have to try to find a way to come out the other end and give it a good effort and try to have the same expectations you would have if you feel great. If you're one of those days where you feel like you can't miss or you can't lose. And I'm sure a lot of these teams in the National Football League right now in the playoffs, after getting through wild card weekend, it's they have that feeling, that they're invincible, or you may have the other side where you got lucky and you're going to get another chance to prove that you're probably the best team in the National Football League. You have both sides of it, but you've got teams that have a wealth of confidence right now.
And you dropped the number one seeds into the next round, coming off a bye week. Both teams appeared to be, at the very top all year long of their respected conferences. So that's a factor that will be interesting as a component in this week's upcoming games. All right, I gave the Dolphins no shot, and especially, I mean, before it was 17-0, which could have easily been anticipated. I had the game at 35-10.
Yes,
with a late touchdown.
I was like, if you can be within less than 30, good for them.
Yeah. So I gave them no chance. I really I didn't think they had a shot there against Buffalo, emotionally charged city there with DeMar Hamlin coming back and showing up, in town. And I think Buffalo at this point, obviously with the injuries, just had a better team. So what did you make of this dogfight that game turned out to be? What was your impression?
I kind of had the same feeling you guys did. I mean, it shouldn't have been 17-0. It should have been 21-0. Dawson Knox catches the football in the back of the end zone. I think it's a different game. But you kind of, 17-0, you hold them to a field goal there, you get a break, you make a couple plays, maybe you're back in it. But I had it, 30-something 13, 30-something 17 as a score going in. but you have to credit the Miami Dolphins and what they did on offense with all the drops early and with all the missed opportunities early. They kept fighting back, and it goes to the other side of the football. I mean, the defense, I know 7 sacks looks ominous on a score sheet, but the way they harassed Allen, the way they were able to make plays defensively, get some interceptions, get some turnovers for scores. I mean, that was the difference in the game. Every time you felt like Buffalo was going to separate and stay separated from the Dolphins, the defense made a play or forced Josh Allen into making some bad plays or bad decisions and tightened the gap and gave their entire team a chance to win in the second half. Heck, when they took the lead after the strip sack fumble touchdown, you're thinking, no way. There's no way this team can hang on. And they were going punch for punch for a while with arguably could be the best team in the National Football League.
Yeah, it was amazing to see. Those that were inclined to lay 13.5 with the Bills obviously were suffering body blows throughout the entire game, except for the 17 Zippo start. All right. Where does that leave us, John Congemi? At 9-9 on the season, made the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. First-year head coach. Still some questions at quarterback. Where are the Dolphins at right now?
Probably in a better spot than Adam Gase was the first year that he led the Dolphins to, the playoffs, because the expectations now are enormous. But I don't think that team had the players that this team has. I don't think the roster was even close to where you can compare both teams and go, wow, I'd rather have McDaniel's opportunity at 9-9 with the offensive weapons that you have, with the playmakers on defense, and have a chance to do it again and either get closer to the Buffalo Bills, a couple of games. When you think about it, Defo, 3 games with the Buffalo Bills, they're 1-2, but 4 points separate them, in those games. And you would have, how about that line, the beginning of the season? There's nobody would have taken that. They would have said Buffalo is going to win all 3. It's going to be a score of, a score differential of 30 points probably. And, the Dolphins are clearly the, second or third best team in the division. But I think they've closed the gap. I know they're not there yet, but they've definitely challenged to close the gap.
Well, look, and when the big difference, look, people say, well, Flores was 9-8 and they were 9-8. What's the difference? That you just said it. The separate, because even Flores at his best, they got pummeled by the Bills.
Yeah.
It became a joke. The Bills and Dolphins were never as far apart as when Brian Flores and maybe a little bit of Adam Gase was the coach. In 1 year, McDaniel turned that around, and you can say they match up well. Well, they didn't match up well last year. So to me, that right there says what Mike McDaniel's doing with this team and how much superior they are to last year's and even years prior. The question I have is this. Look, when you look at holes on the roster, to me, there's 5 or 6 glaring holes, which in the past would have been 25. So 5 or 6 you can fix in an offseason. My question to you, and we've talked about the gentleman a lot, is Chris Grier the guy we trust to fix those holes? Because the draft and free agency are places he's failed miserably. And those are the 2. You don't have money for trades. And you don't have assets. You're going to have to use your 5 draft picks and whatever money you have after cuts to fill this roster out. And I don't know if I trust Chris Grier to do that.
Well, one thing, I guess, guys, Chris Grier doesn't have to worry about the draft because the Dolphins don't really have one, right?
Yeah.
They've kind of, they're all in now this year, next year, what they've done with Bradley Chubb, and you get Tyreek Hill, and you get those pieces around. I like Chris Grier. I trust Chris Grier, what we're trying to do, because I think it's more of plug and play now. I mean, basically your roster's filled out. What you see on the roster, you have. Now, whether you can make moves, you're not going to be able to sign Gesicki again because he was on a 1-year, $12, $13 million deal. For what they used him for, that was probably the last catch, Mike touchdown in a Dolphin uniform, right? Brandon Jones, if you can renegotiate and get his number down, great. If you can't, I don't see him being on the roster. So right there, you've got a lot of money where you had tied up into guys where you're thinking, okay, what can we do? What can we do here? We're probably not going to get a dynamic tight end, because what they're asking the tight ends to do here is not what San Francisco has the luxury of, in the blended guy that can block and catch and doesn't care if he's getting the ball 10 times a game. That's just the way they roll. And I think that's the way the Dolphins tight end position is going to go when you have guys like Waddle and Hill on the outside. And I think running back's been a lot better. You had Mostert and Wilson come in as a 1-2 punch. I guess the questions I will have, all right, is Tua your guy? And if Tua is your guy, then, you got to find, is Skyler the backup? Because I don't think Teddy's going to be there. And that's going to free up another $5 or $6 million on the roster. Yeah. That was a 1-year deal. So it's not like Chris Greer can't make moves in free agency when a lot of these things are going to be June 1, or after, to save the Dolphins money. But I do think there are opportunities for him. Question on the offensive line. What do you do with Austin Jackson? What do you do with Eichenberg? The guys that filled in, they filled in admirably. But if you're going into a season and you're all in, are those your guys? Those are the things I believe that Chris Greer has to answer. And where do you upgrade on defense at the linebacker spot? Defensive line, defensive ends, rush guys, great. Half the secondary, really good. If you get Jones back in the middle along with Holland, I think that's a great safety combination. You got X still out there. He's getting a little bit up there, but still is going to give you what you need on the side, and you're paying him so much money, he's got to play. So I think the questions are, the big one is Tua. Are you satisfied with his progression? Is that your guy? And if it is, then you've got to help him out front again. And that's been a question for the last 20 years, I think.
Little kid comes up to you on the street, recognizes you from your many television appearances in association with the Dolphins and Dolphin coverage, and says, hey, John, would we be better off having Derek Carr or Lamar Jackson at quarterback next year? Do you brush your kid off? I mean, what's your response? Where do you weigh in on any of that?
Well, if you have Lamar Jackson, great quarterback, you're going to change your offense again. I don't know if you're going to stay with a lot of the things that you're doing. I mean, you probably have to trim some of the things off. Maybe he can. Maybe he can fit in nicely. That's for McDaniel to kind of evaluate if you're going down that road. Now, Derek Carr, he's a gunslinger, and I don't know if I thought the dynamic was going to be the perfect scenario for the Raiders this year. You go out and you get a stud wide receiver, you pair him up with a quarterback that's been playing at a high level. They just had, the house of cards fall around them, this year. And you're going to have seasons like that. And when you do, people move. And Derek Carr, is being shown the door. So are those two options better than what you have here with Tua? I don't know. It all depends on what you're deciding to run and how you're going to look offensively, right? Is Tom Brady an option still at 40, whatever, 5, 6, 7?
I would sure hope.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he
if that
played
kid
poorly
says Tom
last
Brady,
night.
I smack him.
Yeah. Well, you look at what's happening in the National Football League. I think you can mask it during the regular season, but when the playoffs start and the speed of the game, especially up front, gets that much faster, you have to have a guy that can either move or escape and be able to extend plays. And not that Tom can't beat you with his quick release and with, being able to read the defense, get the ball out quickly. Hey, Tampa Bay's got some studs on the outside. They couldn't they looked horrendous last night.
Yeah, pretty much inept and very one-dimensional. I mean, all they could do, they got behind hopelessly. What about this kicker? I mean, should there be an investigation with the FanDuel people? How do you do that? I mean,
I had the over/under 3 misses. Did you guys have that?
I was saying earlier, if there had been in-game betting, I could have almost guaranteed I would have bet my house on him shanking the ball off to the left after he blew those two to the right. You knew he was going to overcompensate, but I never expected him to miss the fourth one.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, okay, you have the luxury of being up 24-0.
Yeah, but Defo, don't you think if you're the kicker and you hit the very top of the upright, you got to be thinking like somebody's got the Maloik on me, right? Somebody's
Something
got the
happened there, yeah.
horns on me. I
And this
don't know
guy's a
what
good
I
kicker
did.
too. All right, I mean, he's known. He erased the memory of Scott Norwood. I mean, forever in the minds of playoff viewers, guys that just tune in for the playoffs, because that was horrendous. I mean, and it would have been interesting. I mean, Tampa Bay was totally out of that game, but had they had to rely on a late Maher field goal of 48 yards. Can you
How
imagine?
about if Tampa goes down and gets the 2-point conversion now? Now they're only 2 scores and 2-point conversions away.
Yeah.
Maybe the momentum changes in the game. You're thinking, well, they still have to score 3 times now to even
He left them in there.
challenge us. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that was ugly. Surprised Jerry Jones didn't fire him on the spot. And that marked 5 in a row that he had missed. He missed his last extra point attempt in the previous Dallas Cowboys game. All right, we'll get into a little bit of analysis and viewpoints on the games that are on tap here, as you have still a 4 spot coming up this weekend in the NFL with John Congemi. It's Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi here on the Defo Show, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. And I'll let you take it away, John. I mean, extolling the virtues of Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill is certainly a very easy and full plate to be able to work from.
Yeah, you talk about rising to expectations. I think Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill does it each and every day, with the first-class service and the food that you can get down in Key Largo. It's just a beautiful spot on the Bayside, and weekends are always fun, especially for playoffs, right? Games going crazy in the sports bar. You can order whatever you want inside. You have the fine dining restaurant, about 15 yards to the left, 20 yards to the left in the middle of the property. And then you can saunter out to the tiki bar and kind of watch the games out there with the screens up above the bar there, and just kind of relax and kick back. So great atmosphere, great destination, either going to the Keys and you want to stop off in Key West and have something light to eat or drink at the tiki bar. Coming back, if you're all the way down in Key West, a great spot to just pop off and really just put your feet up and relax and chill until you get back to either Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, wherever you're living. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, just an awesome scenery and an awesome experience from start to finish.
I could use that vitamin D just seeping in.
Yeah.
My head in the sun at this point. Yeah, my head's starting to feel like a pumpkin here. My nose is probably more compressed than Vito Antuofermo, one of my favorite fighters, who like his nose was just splattered across his cheekbones if you met him later on in life. All right, more with John Congemi. The Pigskin Playbook continues here. And, the English patient version of the Defo Show with Mike Lubie continues in a moment. Now that.
The time.
I feel like I just went 12 with Joe Frazier here. It's 8:19.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapists, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Jimmy Johnson joins us here on the program, along with John Congemi, and it's Dateline Dolphins, of course. Leslie Visser, the lovely and talented one.
Did you trademark that expression, by the way?
How about them Cowboys? I should have.
Oh,
I'm not a businessman, as Larry Calvino will know. Jerry Jones is a businessman. Jerry Jones is the smartest businessman that I've ever been around. He knows how to make money, and he works at it night and day. He trademarked my "How about them Cowboys?"
He trademarked it? Of course.
I don't get a penny off those shirts. Not one penny.
The best way to kick off your day is with Defo plus Lubie. We now return to the Defo Show.
I usually look forward to any Cowboys defeat, and of course the shots of Jerry Jones agonizing in the the owner's box there, and hoping that maybe he just decides to jump out the window there. Although don't wish any personal harm on the guy, but I just love it when he's losing his ass. So last night, though, I mean, he and Michael Irvin, that was unbelievable. I mean, they were euphoric the entire ballgame, as became clear right from the outset that, well, after the first couple of series, produced nothing, that game was going the Dallas Cowboys' way. All right, let's look at who's left. Here's John Congemi with us here on a little Pigskin Playbook. And I guess, we can also incorporate a little review into some of the other games from last week. The Chargers in Jacksonville. Jacksonville, a lot of people like Jacksonville in that ball game. They ended up winning the game. It seemed impossible. And they were down, 27-zip?
Nothing. Yeah,
just hopelessly out of it. And they come back from the grave and end up winning a ball game outright. Which, Lubie's amazed today that Brandon Staley still has a job.
I really am.
And Jacksonville now has to go and take on the number 1 seed, the Kansas City Chiefs, on the road. So what do we have there? Is Jacksonville good enough to make this one a contest too?
Well, they're talented enough, but I don't know if they're that talented to climb the mountain and beat Kansas City in Kansas City, right? I made a great decision during that game, or right before that game. I was going to go to see the Panthers play Vancouver, and I said,
oh, nice.
It's the same time as the Charger game in Jacksonville, but I'm not really feeling that game. So sitting in my seat and I'm looking at my phone, it's 20-something nothing. I'm like
27-zip, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what a great decision I made. Go to the game, Panthers win. I'm on my way back, turn on the TV, and I'm watching the second half. I'm like, this is great. I got the best of both worlds. So, yeah, I think the Jags, they're better than people think, but they're not as talented to take maybe the next step. They'd have to play a perfect game to be close and go punch for punch, I think, with Kansas City. I just think that's too much of a mountain to climb for those guys right now. But they are a team that you like to watch. They're fun to watch. They've got some skill players on offense and defense, play at a high rate of speed. I mean, these guys are flying to the football. So it's a Doug Peterson's done a great job with a team that I'm not so sure many Jacksonville fans thought that they would be where they are right now.
And look, often in this gig, and we question how much does a coach matter? Like, coaches get the credit, coaches get the blame. How much do they matter? Those two teams, their situations, to me, let you know what a coach means. Because Brandon Staley has all the talent in the world. People keep talking about they have holes. No, they don't. The Chargers actually have no holes. They have talent. They have a horrendous coach. And the Jags show, and that's what I want to ask. Like, Urban Meyer is going to go down. Already was going to go down as one of the worst ever. To then see his team, they got Etienne back, and Lawrence is a year older, and they drafted the defensive end, number 1 overall, and he's been big. They also just look like a weight's off their shoulder. Like, you played for good and bad coach. Like, coaches really matter that much? Like, because you look at the Jags.
No, they do.
I mean,
they give you a different vibe. Take a look at the Miami Dolphins. I mean, Tua played, not. He didn't play any consistency, right? Last couple of years when he had his opportunities. And then it seemed like the shoulders were always down. He never was an upbeat, when you saw Tua play in college, this guy was excitable. He was getting guys going. He felt like, he's a leader he could be a leader of men at the next level. When you saw him play, some coaches can either take you up or bring you down. And that's not all the fault of the coach. Sometimes the player needs to get some tougher skin too, and be able to take some criticism, take the heat, and get pissed off and turn around and play better, right? So they got a coach that was more of a guy that was going to bring Tua along, and all of a sudden, you get him an offense, you give him a vehicle, you give him confidence, and you pat him on the back a few times instead of taking him, behind the woodshed and just berate him up and down. It worked better for that situation. Same thing in Jacksonville. I think you needed a coach that was going to show the offense, you know what? I've played this game. I know how to call plays. I'm put you guys in the best situation possible to be successful. And once it happened, and then it happened again, now you look at that coach and go, that's our guy. I'm playing for that guy. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing in the National Football League, or players at that level. They just want a chance to succeed. They don't want to win in spite of their coach, right? Holding them back. They want a guy to point to and go, we won because we made plays, but he put us in great positions to win today. That's the feeling you want to have. And that's what Doug does, I believe, in Jacksonville.
Brandon Staley, though, some of the most questionable decisions of in-game coaching, especially
the
the last couple of years that we've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, wild stuff.
The no moss, the timeout is still got to haunt Charger fans
from last
against the Raiders. I mean, that game's going to go in. It's going to end. It's over.
Yeah. No, that was crazy. I mean, that was just one of a zillion, that you could think of, because all of these fourth down decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's great if it works, but when it backfires and blows up in your face, you really look like an idiot. And
Austin Eckler was little used in that
that's
game.
The thing. Like, you can say from McDaniel, like, they're in it. Whatever happens, and as stupid as his decisions are, you would think that 3rd and 19 when they threw it and got the interception. All right, that's it. They went and scored back-to-back touchdowns. Game's over. No, they went and got the ball, marched down the field, got a touchdown with freaking Skylar Thompson, and made it a 3-point game. Like,
yeah.
They stay in it. And that's why when people are hating on a game, I'm like, look at how they, like, Staley's the opposite. They look lost. And he's like, all right. I just.
McDaniel's always the epitome of cool, though. He's always looking at that chart, man. I don't know. Is there something else on there? Well, we know with Andy Reid, it's a Chinese restaurant menu. But, he's the entire time just glued into that thing.
He's just, you know what? He's kind of plotting his way down the field, and he's looking at things that he believes he can see the next series, right? He's onto his plays, but he's looking at things that we didn't get to this, we didn't get to that. And I think this will work. This guy, for all of the shortcomings the Dolphins have had in terms of players and coaches and talent and not talent and bad breaks and good breaks, I think coaching at the end of the day, it's breeding confidence to your organization. And on game day, can you show your team that you will do what you've preached all week, right? Hey, we're gonna go for it. We're gonna let it rip today, right? I think that was the motto going to Buffalo for the Finns. We're gonna let it rip today, and whatever happens, happens. But we're not gonna not shoot our guns, all of them, right? And they showed that. I think the Dolphins had a 3rd and 19 or 3rd and 17. Tyreek Hill goes for 20. I mean, you don't do that against the Bills with any consistency, right? You don't get down 17 points and rear all the way back and have the lead in the beginning of the 3rd quarter, 24-20. That just doesn't happen. This team is closer than people think. And I just feel like a lot of it has to do with the head coach putting guys in position to make plays, the right players in position to make plays. And I think teams get confidence from that. They rally around that.
Oh, you could see it was, somewhat of a perceivable difference in the approach, as Lubie was talking about, even looking at Tua in ball games. All right, Cincinnati and Buffalo. What do you make of this rematch of the abbreviated game?
Yeah,
I think we're going to get the best from both teams. I think this is going to be a really good game. And I don't know if that means 38-34, because they have to play defense too, and they've got some pretty good defenses. But I do think you're gonna see some really high quality football, and depends on the weather too. I didn't check weather, for Sunday, but I know it's going to be probably at best in the 30s, the low 30s, right? The Dolphins had no wind, which was really a blessing. There might be another, nasty day that you have to run the football and you have to win the line of scrimmage. So with two, outstanding quarterbacks, they may be muted a little bit in terms of what they can do. But I still think Buffalo, at home has a slight edge. I think they do have a slight edge on Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, in that first game, I could see the Jags maybe covering 9 because the Chiefs don't cover point spreads very well. But I can't see them winning the game. Cincinnati and Buffalo, I mean, Cincinnati had a really poor ball game. If you think Buffalo was sloppy, I mean, Cincinnati was equally so.
Yeah.
I don't think Baltimore really offered much in the way of offensive firepower in that game with Huntley in a quarterback. And then, they had, just many, opportunities to score points and couldn't put it together. And then that fatal play, I mean, if that doesn't happen, Baltimore's in the lead there, and Cincinnati never scored again. I mean, when they had a chance to ice the ball game, all of their possessions were completely shut down.
I don't know who was doing the game. I can't remember, but he was exactly right. You don't jump over the pile when the play calls quarterback sneak and got guys behind you that are going to push you. The only time you do that, like when Lawrence did it in the Jacksonville game, I think it was more of a spread formation. He's getting it and just sticking it over.
And he barely made it.
He's also
the line,
6'5".
right?
He's like
Right.
5'11".
Right. So it's not like you're going to leapfrog everybody. The linebackers probably weren't as tight to the line of scrimmage in the Jacksonville scenario as well. But what a not only not to get the touchdown, but to have it go back 98 yards for a score against you.
How Michigan is that? I mean, it doesn't get any worse.
Right.
Especially, when you were, getting 8 points with the Ravens. They're about to go in for a spread clinching score. And the next thing you know, you're up 1 and you have to survive the rest of the game. And you do, which was amazing about that ball game. But I didn't think Baltimore really offered much. And Cincinnati was unimpressive. And then on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of their starting offensive linemen are going to be out and look like
left tackle had
very sketchy for this week.
Kneecap, dislocated kneecap, and something else. So I think they're down a few starters on the offense for sure. I mean, can they rally around that? Maybe, but it's going to be tougher. I think both teams are looking to play more consistently, right? So Buffalo at home, I would think, is going to have a better chance, especially with the injuries, Jeff, that you alluded to. I mean, it's hard enough to play with your starters in an environment like that, but you have backups on the offensive line. You have a bunch of noise. You saw how it affected the Dolphins when they had some new players on offensive line with some pre-snap penalties and all that stuff.
That was ugly. Yeah.
It's a tough environment to play in.
This just struck me before we get into these other games, but who was it? Bosa of the Chargers is screaming about officiating, that this has to stop. I do, I have a visualization of the play that he's talking about. It's just absolutely horrendous what happens to this guy. And, not only is there a false start on the part of Jacksonville lineman, but then he's held atrociously right in front of the official, no call. And they end up winning the game. I mean, is it that bad? I mean, we say this every year, John. The officiating in the NFL has never been better. I think it becomes a more compelling problem, with all of the gambling influence that's involved in the game today and the partnership between the NFL and these gambling entities. Do they not? And I don't know what the solution is, because this whole business, remember there was always that debate about having full-time refs. That was going to change everything. If a ref's just sitting in a classroom all day, you still could blow a call on the field. Now, the replay has corrected a lot of these calls. Where they're reviewing more plays, and I don't mind that at all. Especially when did the ground become the third hand?
Yes, I knew that they had to review 3 of those in the Dolphins game. I'm like, he's using the ground. Like, when did that change? Like, why?
Ball hits the ground. Any playground I ever played in, man, it's no catch. I mean, and you had to be, righteous enough to admit that. Oh no, I'm sorry, the ball hit the ground.
Yeah, it hit the ground.
Self-team
Right.
officiating.
Right. I
But
don't know.
when did that become a catch? It's like the the Euro step in basketball, where like when did a 9-step trip to the basket become legal?
Well, it's like the officiating problem is almost like life. You know, we have so many new things at our disposal to make it easier on you as a person, right? But sometimes it gets convoluted because you have so many decisions to make. In the life of football, we've got 70,000 cameras now and different angles that we're watching. So when the old days, when you had 5 cameras on a game or 7 cameras or 10 cameras, you only had certain angles that you could go back and replay and watch. Now you've got 2 different angles, 3 different angles on the defensive rush end in the tackle box, right? Or different offensive linemen that you actually see all the holding. So I don't think the game's being played or officiated that much differently. I just think that you're seeing everything now. And you could call a penalty just about on every
Oh, no
play.
doubt. I mean,
added to the fact that I think the most improvement in speed and strength and elusiveness has been at defensive end or linebacker or defensive tackle, and guys moving with that rate of speed against the offensive linemen that have improved to a point, but still the upper hand is with the guys on the defensive side. So you're getting a lot of grabbing, you're getting a lot of clinching, and you have more eyeballs on it. So naturally you're going, well, that's a penalty. Well, this is a penalty. That could have been a penalty. But normally you wouldn't see all that. I just think in the playoffs and the way everything's covered now, you have so many different camera angles. You're going, how can that guy not see that? Well, they're going at such a high rate of speed.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing it up in a booth where you can magnify and slow it down and go, that was holding. Hey, let's call down. That was holding. Then the game's going to take as long as the Dolphin-Bills game took for the first half, right?
Yeah.
That felt like it was a day for that.
That was, I mean, it was interesting because the Dolphins managed to come back late in the
right.
second quarter in that ball game. You hate to see the ticky-tack stuff. I mean, officials need to use some discretion. Every now and then you'll see a guy just barely brush the guy and they call a hold and it wipes out a scoring play. And then you'll see some blatant thing where the guy's in a rear naked choke and no call is being made. I guess that's always going to be a permanent complaint. I do think they have so-called cleaned up some of it, with the number of replays that are used and as you said, the number of replay angles that we get to see. All right, we'll come back in just a moment. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. We talked about how great it is. John, have you been down there recently or are you planning a trip?
I haven't been down recently, just a couple months ago, but it's the time of year where the weather is just perfect, right? So once we get over what we're feeling like and the sun comes out again, right? And it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day today. That's the place to be because I always feel like I can do just about anything I want down there, right? You go in the pool, you can sit at the bar, you can take jet skis, you can go on the boat, you can go up to your residence if you're staying there for the weekend. You can go watch activity. You can watch sports everywhere on property, which is kind of a cool thing. You can go from the sports bar out to the tiki bar and maybe miss 2 plays, right?
Yeah.
So you don't miss. You carry your drink with you, and you miss 2 plays. You're in good shape. So Jimmy Johnson's, not only can you do all that stuff, but you can have fine dining at its best for anywhere in the Keys. My brother and Larry and Amanda, they do such a great job down there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill that it has a little bit for everybody, and it's accessible for everyone. It's just a great spot, great destination to be.
Oh, it's unreal, man. Just a good time to be had by all there. Great food and drink, like you said. There's a lot of competition there and a lot of places that are somewhat iconic in the Keys that are all very good. But as you said, I mean, the variety, the versatility of the stuff that's on the menu at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill is unparalleled anywhere in the Keys and maybe even South Florida. So that's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. All right, more with John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook. And thanks for hanging in there with me, John, today, because it's been a mess. But you're carrying
in there, man.
You're carrying a load, man. I mean, you're doing all the heavy lifting on this one. That's great. Sorry I haven't been much help. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:41.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Eight Line Dolphins with John Congemi, and that's brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill in the Keys, and we're looking very much forward to doing some broadcasts there. I think we're going to head down there like once a month during the football season. I have to ask you this, and feel free to, not necessarily spill the beans from a personal standpoint to your good friend Dan Marino. Does he experience, or did he ever experience nightmares about handing the ball off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that one year when Jimmy insisted on running the ball on every play? And it was always, the announcer, I think it was Ron St. John, was a stadium announcer back then, and you could hear him say, hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 2nd and 9. Hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 3rd and 8. Did he ever talk about that?
No, he's never really talked about that, Defo. But you're right. I think they did have that on loop at whatever the stadium was called at that time.
It was 1 yard every time. And it was a generous 1 yard they were giving him statistically.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show, the Defo Show here, and appreciate you guys tuning in, sticking with us through a little bit of thick and thin here. John Congemi, of course, with the Pigskin Playbook, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Have you talked to Danny recently? He's been very much of a
showing him a lot,
visible presence there, and actually looked like he was going to come into that last game against the Jets when he was on the sideline. It looked like he was going to rip the blue jacket off and just fire a couple down to.
He had Nat beside him. He should have threw Nat in there too.
Yeah, I'll still take Hill and Waddle over Nat at this point. But, Danny Boy over Skylar Thompson might have been an option. Have you talked to him? What does he think about all of this? Has he said anything about? He seems to be, a big fan of what's going on with the team.
Oh, I think he's encouraged. I think any Dolphin fan, if you're looking at the way the Miami team has played, over the season, I go back to listening to McDaniel, the head coach, talk about how he wants his teams to play. And at the beginning of the season, he said, we want to be getting consistently better as the season goes along, and we want to be playing our best football at the end of the season. Well, naturally, every coach would like that. If you take a look at what the Dolphins did this year, it was more of a roller coaster, and it wasn't just a crappy roller coaster. It was one, it was really good highs, but then when they dove pretty low, right? So you win 3, you lose 3, you win 5, you lose 5 or 6, you come back and you start return and serve a little bit at the end of the year, win 1, lose 1, win, it's kind of like they didn't build the momentum where they needed to in terms of they win 5 in a row against teams you should beat. And now you've got an opportunity on those 3 away games. If you turn the tide and you win that Charger game, or you find a way, to win 2 of 3 on the road, or at least put yourself in position where you win at home against Green Bay, that gets you on another roll again. I think Dan, I think most Dolphin fans would have said, that's what the head coach wanted this team to do, and that's what they did. They got better at the end. They got rid of the 3-game losing streak or the 2-game losing streak had you beat, one of those teams there in that stretch, and you played better at the end. You found a way to beat Green Bay. You go on the road, you find a way to beat New England. You go on, you have the Jets at home, you take care of business, you're in the playoffs. Those are the types of things I think that not only regular Dolphin fans, but guys on the inside, guys like Dan and Nat, and got, that's what you wanted, the trajectory of the team you wanted to see. And they were close to doing it. I just think that, when you have the inconsistency with injuries at quarterback and you have the inconsistencies on the offensive line and you're young in the secondary, I think this team, as well as they played, there's plenty of room for improvement. I mean, look at the way they rushed the quarterback and they got after Josh Allen. Had they did that more consistently throughout the year with the addition of Bradley Chubb, and you lose, you lose Emmanuel Ogbah, you have some inconsistencies there. But if you get a little bit more out of that early in the year, where the defense, as McDaniel also said, the defense was carrying the team at certain points. Well, the offense had some games where they carried. If you get both of them going at the same time, I think this team can really close the gap even further on the Bills.
All right, a couple of other games going to be on tap here. The G-Men go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia, the number 1 seed, had a bye week last week. Maybe very beneficial to them because they were kind of banged up a little bit at the end of the year, and did manage to kind of save everybody a little bit in their final game in the regular season. Do you think this is an overreaction? I held this up earlier. I got my New York Post today. And if it wasn't for the fact, am I the only guy, by the way, that doesn't have top secret documents stashed somewhere in the house? And thank God those wheels up, guns down guys went to bicycles because there was far less, damage yesterday on this Martin Luther King Day than there was. I don't know if this happens in other cities, but in Miami, where these guys all get out there on dirt bikes and ATVs and intimidate the living daylights out of virtually everybody on the road, right? I mean, a 71-year-old guy like me, I don't need to be driving and then get surrounded by a bunch of maniacs on ATVs that are preaching peace, right? Just doesn't seem, congruous with the whole idea. But anyway, this is what they have in a post today, John. Elite. And there's a picture of Daniel Jones, who Lubie thinks is a stiff. I thought he was going to be okay coming out of North Carolina, but I was influenced, very much so by the highlight reel I saw, where he didn't look half bad. Oh, Duke, right? And then
Wes Trubisky.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought, from what I saw when he was drafted, yeah, this kid, why doesn't he have a shot? All right, he showed some signs of life and also some negativity, and it was very questionable, much like it is with almost every Dolphin quarterback since Danny, as to whether he was a guy you wanted to keep around. I thought he had a great game against Minnesota.
He did.
Does he deserve this, though? The back cover with the word elite and
you know what, guys?
Eli Manning.
As much as he's taken, I hope he embraces that.
Yeah.
Right. As much stuff as he's been thrown at him over the last couple of years of what he can't do. Same example: head coach, quarterback relationship, put him in better situations. I can't tell you how much confidence it gives the quarterback when if you make a mistake that he's got your back. Now, if you make it 2, 3, 4 times, different story. But I will tell you that means a lot to a quarterback because it's just not always your fault. And sometimes fans that are watching the game and they see an interception go, how could you throw that pass?
Yeah.
Well, they don't see the receiver went 4 yards further than he should have, or 2 yards shorter than he should have, and took a bad angle that allowed the safety to cut in front of him. That's all part of the game, and it's still the end result. Hey, it's an interception. Why did it happen? I think the quarterback sucks. We should put in the backup, right? But Daniel Jones has been the culprit in a lot of those things. Now, some self-imposed, where he's running for touchdowns and he fumbles the football, and you can pick plays on anybody like that. But I do think if he plays the way he did against the Vikings, he should get some reward, because I actually liked him coming out of college because he's everything that you want in a quarterback in terms of size, strength, mobility.
Little prototype.
But going to a really, marginal team in a bad offensive line. Now you got a guy where you've got a really good play caller and a guy that wants to get the best out of him, put him in good situations, and he doesn't turn it over as much. It's a pretty good combination for the division they're playing in. Now, same thing with Cincinnati going into Buffalo. I don't know if the Giants have enough going into Philly with that team rested, and if Hurts is feeling pretty good, if that shoulder isn't bothering him, that's a tough team to hold down for 4 quarters.
They look good, both sides. We asked a question on the Friday show before this long and very entertaining wild card weekend of football. The Super Wild Card weekend couldn't have been any more of a smash hit. I am aware, I guess, that the halftime show is going to be spectacular for the Super Bowl. They're teasing that more than they do the Masters on CBS, which is still like 8
hard to
months
do.
away.
That's hard to do. Yeah.
My God, hello, friends. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was nice to see this guy. I thought he was razor sharp in this game. As you said, Dayball shows a lot of faith in a guy, and similar thought pattern as we have with McDaniel and Tua and even Skylar Thompson or whatever in this role. Having sort of the feeling that, hey, we believe in you, we have faith in you. So even if you go out there and screw up, Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, so we're still going to come back, and you're going to be the reason that we either win or lose this game in the end. But I'm giving you every chance to go out there and feel like you can win it. I wasn't a big believer in the Giants. I hadn't seen enough Giants football to really have a solid opinion on what they were going to do. What we did ask on the Friday show, at what point would everybody be screaming "fucking Vikings"? Because I thought, wow, laying 3 points.
Circled. Everybody circled the Vikings like that's the team you want to play in the first round.
Oh yeah,
on the NFC side, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it was surprising to me. I thought, sometimes you'll see like a close decision in boxing. It's like 115, 113, but and this was a 1 touchdown differential, 7-point differential. But I thought the Giants really outplayed Minnesota in this ball game. Especially they got down right. They get down. Was it 7 or 10-0, something like that, right at the beginning?
Something like that.
7-0. Yeah, and then they got the next couple of touchdowns. But a good performance and a good season. I mean, you would have to say Dayball distinguished himself as a very competent and up and coming head coach. How bad was Gettleman as a general manager? You have to ask yourself to have them
Joe
buried
Sheen
like they
came
were.
in and just turned that thing right around. Right?
Wow.
He was at the Dolphins for 5 or 6 years. Gets an opportunity to go to Buffalo. Under Brandon Bean, and then all of a sudden he gets his opportunity to run the whole thing in New York, and first year out, they're in the second round.
Yeah, and you see, how organizations, it seems like a lot of people that came through this whole Buffalo organization, say circa back a few years ago, have had a lot of success now in both the front office and on the coaching sidelines. All right, I thought the Cowboys, they impressed me last night. They were kind of sloughing off there at the end of the year. I didn't know if they even I would have taken the points with Tampa Bay last night, even though Tampa Bay is one of the most boring offensive teams in the league. Tom Brady notwithstanding. I mean, they didn't do anything this year on offense. They got Evans and Godwin, and it seems like it saved Leonard Fournette for this game. He's a power runner. They have the other guy. What is it, White? That can run the football and is a little versatile. Seems like they have enough around Tom Brady to make it work. They look like shit, John. I mean, the entire ball game. And outside of the comedy of the kicker, I thought the Cowboys were pretty impressive last night. So does that make us rethink our position there? And can they be a threat to the 49ers on the road?
I don't know. I was thinking about that last night after the first 3 plays the Cowboys ran. I go, oh my gosh, Tampa Bay is they're going to go right down and score. Then I watched Tampa run the first 3 plays, and I was like,
ugly.
wow, this is going to be a really bad game. If that's what they did all week, and those were the way they came out.
The big scripted plays, yeah. I mean,
right. So can they challenge San Francisco at San Francisco? They can, but they would have to play a duplicate. I mean, that carbon copy game that they just played after the first series of the game.
Yeah.
Right? Because San Francisco couldn't have played Brock Purdy for as good as he's been. What is he now, 7-0 or 8-0 or something like that?
Yeah,
for as good as he's been throughout that stretch, the beginning of the game had some people going, okay, maybe this is the end of the road. Maybe, it's
you always
not
wonder
going to be
about
his
that.
day today. And he found a way, to his credit, to come back in the second half. And, man, that team looked like a different football team, much like the Cowboys did after their first, after the rough start.
Two possessions in the toilet, in a row.
Right. So can they do it? Yeah, but I don't see Dallas playing 2 perfect games offensively like that. I think you'll have glimpses of that, but against the San Francisco defense that doesn't give you a whole lot, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the Cowboys.
Having been a fat guy most of my life who couldn't dance, I always appreciate it when the guys that are a little bit obese attempt to do it. And was that not the contract extension guarantee dance that McCarthy was doing after the game? I don't know if you saw that clip of him in the locker room, but how do you fire him after that?
I can't get the image of the crest that he had on his sweater on the sidelines out of my brain. Just put the star on there, right? I mean,
it was very impressive, I thought, what the Cowboys did last night. They were also, lightning quick on defense by comparison to whatever the Tampa Bay offense was offering. And we do know that Tampa Bay has some talent. I mean, a great acquisition by the 49ers, too. I mean, McCaffrey, I don't think that's been talked about enough. I mean, with Deebo Samuel and McCaffrey, these are two variations of Hill and Waddle that are different, though. I mean, because they both run the ball, too.
Yep. Yeah, they're a tough offense. They're a tough offense because they can run it traditionally, or they can beat you with fly motion and sweeps and kind of get it on the perimeter really quickly. And then they've got a nice little 1-2 punch at running back as well. So if Brock Purdy plays close to the level that he's been playing at, I don't see the Cowboys being able to duplicate the number of explosive plays against the 49ers that they had against Tampa Bay.
It's funny, too, because you think of the 49ers being led into, some postseason glory, and it's Joe Montana, and he's like the epitome of cool. And then you see this Brock Purdy guy, and while he's acquitted himself, in excellent fashion as a player, I mean, he looks like a kid. I mean, he really does.
Yeah, he is a kid.
23.
Yeah.
You're thinking, wait a minute, man, this guy's quarterbacking the 49ers to a commanding position in the postseason where, in all likelihood, at least according to the odds and the situation, they'd be going against Philadelphia for the NFC Championship, right, to go to the Super Bowl.
Right. It's going to be a great finish, I think. The wild card weekend was super.
Wildly entertaining. Wildly entertaining.
It was great, and it was a lot of fun. You had a bunch of different games with outcomes you weren't sure until the last play or the last couple of plays. And I don't know if this round's going to be that way. I think the good teams, the teams are going to settle in. But you do have, the Cincinnati Buffalo game will be intriguing, I think. I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to keep it going against Philly in Philadelphia. But gosh, it'll be fun to watch. And some of the teams that haven't played, that's always the teams that you're kind of, okay, they're the number one seeds, but they had that week off. Did it help them or did it hurt them, early in a game until they settle into what they're trying to do? So that'll be something to watch for me as well.
All right, sounds good. Johnny, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Hope you're feeling better, Defo.
You know what? I don't feel as horrible as I did the last couple of days, but the strain on the vocal cords there with the congestion was a little bit much. But nonetheless, always brilliant, to have you on the show and get your thoughts on all the things that happen in the NFL. And we'll look forward to next week. Going to be another exciting weekend with 4 games on tap. Thanks for
Sounds great, guys. Talk to you then.
Thanks, John.
All right, so this is interesting. The reverse Mayo parlay worked. He picked 6 games and lost all 6. We would have been 2-4.
Yes.
Had we gone ahead and made that wager. So, I mean, we would have been out of it with the Dolphins, which would have been appropriate. That would have been the team that knocked us out. But we had no guts, man. I mean, how do we pick 3 chalk on Saturday's card? 3 chalk. That's disgusting.
I believed it. The Giants proved me wrong. I don't know. Everyone kept saying Giants. I thought the Vikings have so much talent. I was waiting for them to just be that, and they were not.
How do you lose at home like that, man? I would say the Giants just were superior overall physically in that game, and many different aspects of the game, including the running of Daniel Jones at quarterback, who's not afraid to go ahead and just dive forward for yardage. I mean, this guy's tough. So, very, very good stuff. All right, one other thing I wanted to mention, I happen to be up, I'm up and down, all night long with this disease here. And so I catch like 3 a.m, Andy Murray against my man, Matteo Berrettini, the Italian stallion. And they're in the first round of the Australian Open, which is underway, right? So you're getting live matchups 3 a.m. on ESPN2. So Murray wins the first couple of sets. I didn't watch all of it. I missed I tuned in the 5th set. and they're going back and forth. Mateo's serving like nothing but howitzers. Murray's hanging in there, and Murray's a great story because what does this guy need to be in tennis anymore for? To win a couple of rounds, maybe in a slam, and then bow out? But to put up this kind of battle, and then he wins in a fifth set tiebreaker. Yeah, I mean, and he staved off. I mean, there's so much luck involved in all sports. It's amazing the infinitesimal difference between success and failure. Because Murray hits a horrible drop volley. He's down, add Berrettini in the game that would have made it. It would have made it a 6-4 set. He's serving to try and take it to 5-5. So anyway, Berrettini gets a drop shot, the horrible dropper, like something I would hit to Dr. Jerry, and it's just sitting there like on a tee. And the guy comes up, he could hit it as long as he lands a ball in a court. It's a winner, and he wins the match in 5 sets without having to go to the tiebreaker, and he blows it. I mean, and you're thinking that's impossible. There's no way. I mean, he comes running up, had all day, Lubie, to hit the shot too. I mean, it wasn't like he was under stress or had to run up there in the last second, make a dive for the ball. And then to Murray's credit, he took advantage of that and was able to stave him off there. And so who knows if he makes it past the second round? But pretty good that guy came back from all of the different stuff that happened to him injury wise. Has no reason. I mean, I think he's worth like $600 million or something. On his team coaching is a somewhat rotund Yvonne Lendl, who's put on a few pounds.
That's funny.
Yeah, and you're wondering why would Lendl want to get involved, at this level? What does Lendl need to be coaching? He doesn't need the money. So, I mean, I kind of like these stories from the love of the game aspect, where a guy's really just doing it for the love of the game and still has a determination to do something like that. Because Berrettini's no slouch. He was injured a lot of last year. He's not quite the same. He's ranked, he was the 13th seed. But, maybe needs to play a few matches to get into a playing shape. But real good job there by Andy Murray, who was never my favorite. When they were like the big three, the big four. Murray was like the last consideration. His mother was always hanging around. I mean, to the point of making it a very, very curious situation with Andy Murray. But good job by him. I mean, a lot of guts it took to stick that thing out. And one other note here. This jockey, Ramsey Zimmerman, used to be here at Gulfstream Park for a while. He was winning a lot of races in one of the summer meets, but, had a little problem with the coca leaf. And substance abuse really compromised his career. Came back after 5 years and won a race the other day at Oaklawn Park. 5 years out of the business. Yeah. So hope he can stay straight and make something happen for himself. All right. We'll see you later on. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Yeah, hopefully I'll make it to that. Might be better off to scratch out of that there. Kind of disgusting. Have a guy choking all over himself. Although I did get the name of that. It's a Cuban restaurant. I thought it was Spanish, like the Cafe Seville, but down in Dade County, a place called La Rosa. I got that from the birthday boy, Santos Perez of Miami Herald boxing coverage fame. And, we'd gone there a couple of times, and Eddie Kay was a big fan of that place. So I don't know if Mayo's been there, but really nice, as I recall, man. Good. And in an area where you wouldn't think like fine dining was necessarily going to be in abundant supply. As, the Taco Bell probably stands out there as one of the restaurants. But one of these, sort of hole-in-the-wall joints that turns out to be outstanding. La Rosa.
Nice.
Down there by the Magic City Casino. All right, we'll see you later on.
Yes.
It's a Taco Tuesday, Sony says. But with Mayo's taste in tacos, there's no point discussing that. He gets an idea, and that's it, man. It's the only way. But he couldn't be any more dead wrong about that whole thing. All right, we'll see you later on. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Lubie, good job. I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in and bearing with me, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow also here on this show as we leave you on that.
The time.
9:05.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.